Hey guys, it's Brittany. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for clicking this video. I hope you like it, I hope you subscribe, and I hope you want to be friends. Today's video is honestly the first time that I've put makeup on in 2 or 3 weeks because I haven't left my house, so what's the point, you know? But today I'm going to be doing my February and my March wrap up, because I didn't do a February one and because I got in a reading slump in March thanks to the book that I'm currently reading. I say that, but I haven't picked it up because the first 100 pages are just rough. But I will talk about that at the end, what I'm currently reading. I do have some of these books in my home, but I just can't be bothered to go and get them because, you know, they're in the other room and I've already sat down. So yeah, without any more talking about why this video isn't the best, I'm gonna just jump into it and wrap up some books. Looking at my my journal while I talk about some of these because I think I have notes on a few of them, but I'm just gonna go in order of how I have them in my journal. So yeah, the first book that I finished in February was The Library Book by Susan Orlean. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's a nonfiction book about the burning of the LA library, but really that's just a really small part of it, so don't go in thinking it's like a true crime, like whodunit. It's not. That's such a tiny amount. Honestly, they don't even know who did it, so. But it is kind of like a love letter to libraries in general. So if you love books, and especially if you love public libraries, you're gonna probably really enjoy this book. It's really, really beautifully written. It's like reading a novel. That's how Susan's writing is. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have actually loaned this book out to my friend Chelsea, but I wish that I had remembered to write down some of the quotes because I filled it with tabs because there were so many memorable things that I wanted to be able to go back and write in my journal. There's quotes about the library. There's just facts that I just thought were fascinating about the history of libraries in the United States. And yeah, it's just an all-around good time. There's also an audiobook for it. I would also recommend that if you like audiobooks because the author does read it herself. So yeah, I gave that 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read it was one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. I listened to it on audio. I actually had it pre-ordered on Audible. It was my last credit that I needed to spend before it's the only reason I had Audible. And that is going to be The King of Crows by Libba Bray, which is the final book in the Diviner series. I don't really know how I feel about this book. It was okay. I gave it 4 stars. It was not my favorite, and it's not really the way I had hoped that things would wrap up. It's hard to really pinpoint what was supposed, I don't know, what I would have rather happen, but it's like maybe Libba didn't know either. I don't know, she just sends them on this road trip kind of thing, and then, you know, we get to the big bad, which is, you know, the King of Crows, and he's dealt with, I don't know, the way they solve the problem is just much quicker and easier than you would expect or really want after reading, you know, how many of these books? Which was this is a 4th book. After reading 4 books about these characters and this villain, you know, you hope that the solution is more difficult to get to. But I just felt like, yeah, it was kind of lackluster for an ending. But, you know, it's still Libba Bray's writing. It's still these characters that we love. Although some of them kind of act a little bit out of character, in my opinion. I'm not going to go into who or why because I don't want to spoil anything. But, I mean, I would still recommend, reading the end of the series. I mean, the first book is just one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And I think that the sequels are also really enjoyable. So yeah, I mean, 4 stars, maybe even 3.5, but I don't know. The love and nostalgia I have for the Diviners is not going to let me bump that down, so I'm going to go with 4. Oh, but a big big plus, and probably why I'm going to keep it at a 4 is the audiobook, the narration. My goodness, I think January Lavoie does it, but she does like a different voice for every single character, and they're very distinct, and she's just amazing. Like, you can tell, like, this is her calling, voice acting and audiobook narration. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend, if you're going to read it, to listen to it. The next book that I read in February was for my book club, and I also listened to the audio book of that, and that is called This Is How It Always Is. And I enjoyed this book, you know. I gave it 3 stars. I thought that, I should probably tell you what it was about first, shouldn't I? This book is really a book about a family. So, it's about these 2 parents who, you know, have a lot of children. They're all boys, and she secretly wishes for a girl, but she never gets one. And so the last kid they have, his name is Claude, and, you know, he's the baby of the family. And at a very young age, he starts saying that he doesn't want to wear, you know, pants. He wants to wear a dress. He wants to dress up. He wants to be a princess, you know. Then he starts identifying as Poppy, which is also the name of his mother's sister who died when she was little. And so, you know, the parents do their best. You know, they try to parent this child the best way they know. And it's just kind of a story about how everyone reacts to Poppy, Claude. They do go back and forth between what they identify as, and it's just kind of a look over a few years in the adolescent age, and how his parents, or her parents, their parents, handle, you know, being there for Poppy and supporting them, and just how they deal with, you know, the schools and the community's reactions, you know, Poppy's siblings, you know. It's a really beautiful family dynamic that, my only thing with this really, and I think I did actually take notes for this, one second. I said that the story was really interesting in the beginning, and I really appreciated that it gave me a lot of new, like, information and insight into what some people have to go through, like the links that they have to go to just to feel at home in their body, and like who they really are. And I can't imagine, you know, what some people have to go through, you know. I never really read, I don't think I've read a book with one of the main characters as was transgender, but you know, I really appreciated that there was a spotlight on that and that struggle, because, you know, people really do go through this, and they really do need a book like this, because this book is a very positive look at it. You know, there's no one who's really negative about Poppy's transition. And then when Poppy regresses and starts kind of identifying as Claude again, but not because they really want to, but because they feel like that's what they should do, you know, the parents are like, whatever we need to do, we want to be there, but we need you to make sure you're being authentic to yourself. So that was really good. And in the beginning, oh, also, I really appreciated, like, all of the things that they discuss. They don't really go into, like, great detail, which is, I wish they did. I'd like to know more about, like, you know, when to start hormone therapy, and what kind of effect that has on you as a little boy or a little girl, and how, when you should do it, you know, what age is appropriate, you know, what do you owe other people about, you know, your genitalia? Like, what are they entitled to at your school? Like, what do they need to know? Like, I don't know. It's just really interesting. And at the beginning, the story was really compelling too. It was so well written, and like, you just like you wanted to keep reading. But then it kind of goes on this weird tangent, and it kind of leaves the regular story, and they go somewhere else, and that's where it kind of lost me. I stopped feeling as compelled, and I got kind of bored. It kind of slowed down in the middle for me and got stuck. And throughout the book, the dad of the kids tells like a running fairy tale story, and it's basically about his children, and about Poppy. And so it's really interesting and cute that they have that woven throughout. One like major gripe that I had about this book, besides it like losing me in the middle and just kind of getting boring and slow, is that it just almost wrapped up too neatly. And I also feel like it would have been interesting to have spanned more years of Poppy's life, like maybe, you know, high school or something like that, just to see like what kids go through. And you know, I do wish that there had been at least one like family member that had been like harder to just accept Poppy right away, because I feel like most people who go through having to transition to be like their authentic self probably have a little bit more pushback, at least here in the South. And it would have been nice to have seen how Poppy and her parents handled it, you know, as a way to kind of draw inspiration from, because my favorite part about this book is definitely how good the parents were. I think that they were really protective, and I think that maybe they at times were too protective. They didn't prepare Poppy, and they didn't, I don't know, I feel like they weren't as transparent and honest as they should have been. But they were really good parents, and it was just so obvious how much they love their kids and how much they wanted their kids to know that they accept them for whoever they are. And that's the kind of parent that I want to be, you know. No matter what Clara or Jocelyn decide about who they are in the future, I just want them to know that they don't have to earn any kind of love from me, and they don't have to be a certain way, you know, like they can be who they are, and I'm going to support them no matter what. And you know, that's just a really good takeaway from the book. The next book that I read in February is called The Sundown Motel, and that is by Simone St. James. This is kind of a mystery, suspense, I guess like a little bit of a thriller, because it's kind of got like a supernatural like ghost element to it. And I really enjoyed this book. I read it and I also listened along sometimes on the audiobook, and both of them were great. I just really enjoyed this book. It really just took my mind off of things, and it also creeped me out. Like at points I would be reading at night and be like, I'm legitimately scared. But it wasn't like overly creepy, because I don't like horror, and I really loved this. And I, you know, really just enjoyed the storytelling. I think Simone St. James is a great writer. She always writes really interesting and complex female characters. Like they always have a lot of layers to them, and they feel really authentic. But yeah, this was just a really enjoyable read. I highly recommend it, along with the other book that I always talk about by Simone St. James, which is The Broken Girls. They're both just such a creepy, good layered mystery. They're a really good quick read. The last book that I read in February was absolutely my favorite book of the month, and I haven't stopped talking about it and recommending it to everyone since I read it, and that is The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. And this book should not be as good as it is, and it wouldn't be if it weren't for how good of a writer Ann Patchett is. This book, I just couldn't put it down. I think I read it in just like 2 solid chunks, like back to back, one day and then the next. It was just wonderful. And it really is a book about the Dutch house. I mean, that's the backbone of this book. That's what connects everyone that's in the book. But it is like a generational tale. Like it spans like 30 or 40 years of this family's life. Our main characters are a brother and sister, Danny, the younger brother, and Maeve, the older sister. And it starts when Danny is I think he's in elementary school, and basically it's just them and their dad. We don't know what happened with their mom. We keep getting different stories. I don't think they know what happened with their mom, but their dad is in real estate and construction, and he loves buildings. And so he bought this like art that is a house, and it's called the Dutch House because of the people who built it and lived there were Dutch. They were called the Van Hoebekes, and they left all of their stuff there. So all of the furniture, the art, the dishes, everything is exactly the same. So yeah, that is like the backdrop of the story, and it's just about loss. It's about how life isn't fair, and about how you have to decide what's important to you. Honestly, like, are you gonna dwell, or are you gonna like just move on with your life? And it's so interesting how how just like revenge and like, I don't know, pettiness plays such a big role in these people's lives. It's literally the reason that so many things happen, why they have careers that they have. It's just incredible. And my favorite part of this whole story is that, you know, we would jump in time from like back in their childhood, and then, you know, Danny would be telling the story, narrating, then all of a sudden we jump to like 20 years in the future. They're sitting in the car in front of the Dutch house where they kept going. They go and park in front of this house, and she would be like, that's not what happened, like, and they would like argue about like, you know, how reliable is Danny's like story that he's telling. And I just love that. It would like break up the narrative, and it would jump around in time, and it wasn't confusing to follow. They did it. Ann Patchett did a really good job clarifying where in the story we were. It was beautiful. And it's not really linear either. It definitely jumps around, you know, a few times throughout the story. But yeah, I obviously gave this book 5 stars. I just love it. It's so beautiful, and I cannot recommend it enough. Those are all the books that I read in February. So now I'm going to quickly wrap up the books that I read in March, and then get on to what I'm currently reading. And we'll be reading between now and I guess the end of April, along with my Owls TBR, which is a different video that I've probably already uploaded and you hopefully have already watched. But yeah, so the first book that I completed in March was one that I pulled from my TBR jar, and that was Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. I also listened to this one on audiobook, which I also recommend. Steve West does a really good job narrating and doing different voices for all the different characters. And yeah, this is the sequel slash finale to the duology, the Strange the Dreamer duology. And Strange the Dreamer, I gave 5 stars. I loved it. It's beautiful. Her writing is incredible. My goodness. But Muse of Nightmares, I gave 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it, just not as much as Strange the Dreamer. It was really interesting. It was really long. I think there were some parts that dragged and maybe could have been edited more. But honestly, you know, I would read pretty much anything that Laini Taylor writes at this point. She's just really talented. Her stories are good. The romances are good. And the weird like mythology and history that we get of these worlds, because it's multiple worlds, is so interesting throughout the book. It's like little history book snippets are sprinkled in, and I really enjoyed that. But yeah, like I said, I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I read in the month of March was Normal People by Sally Rooney, and this was my real life book club pick for the month. I don't know how much I should even say about this book, because I went in not really knowing anything at all, and honestly it's not really a plot heavy book, so it's kind of hard to even say what it is. It also spans like many years of our main characters' lives. The story is about 2 people who are kind of friends. They just know each other from school. Marianne and Connell are their names, and it just spans their weird relationship, like, you know, through all of high school, then all of college, and it's just really interesting. I can see why this book is extremely polarizing. Like, people seem to either really love this book or just freaking hate it. They like despise it. And my friend Stephanie is one of the people who like absolutely hates it. So I was actually prepared to not like this book at all because Stephanie didn't like it. But maybe that's why I did like it so much, just because I just had the lowest expectations. But I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The main thing that I liked about this book is just like how compulsively readable it was. Like, every time I picked it up, I just wanted to flip to the next page. Like, something about her writing. It took me a minute to get used to it because she does not use like quotation marks in dialogue, so that took me a minute. But once I got used to it, I didn't notice it. It didn't bother me at all. It is an interesting choice though, and I wonder why she made it. If you've read her other book, what is it? Conversations with Friends. Does she use quotation marks in that book? Let me know. I will say that the characters in this book are extremely frustrating. They are not great people. So if you can't read a book where you can still like the book without actually liking the characters, you probably won't like this book. Same with if you can't read a book unless it's super plot heavy, you probably won't like this book because the plot is like almost nothing. It's just all about character development and growth and their interactions. But they are very frustrating people, and most of the like problems that they encounter in this book could have been easily avoided or remedied even afterwards if they had just communicated with each other. And I guess I don't really like this communication as like a plot device. It's not my favorite, so I found myself getting frustrated with them and probably would have rated it higher had that not been like the cause of literally all of their problems. But you know, despite my frustration with the characters and how irritable they were, and I will say that I still enjoyed the book. I thought that Marianne and Connell and even the side characters and the choices that they made and the relationships they all had with each other were so interesting. What we did have of the story and the plot I liked. I'm interested in things set in college and academia. That's always really interesting to me, and a lot of this takes place at Trinity College in Dublin. And if you know me at all, you know I am just interested in all things Ireland and Dublin, and that's just something that I love. And I also think that the writing style was just really easy to get into. The flow was perfect. I think the pacing of the book really, really worked. And so, like I said, I gave that one 3.5 stars. And the last book that I actually completed in March is one that I read along with my daughter, although she has since completely blown past me in this series, and that is Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. This is the first book in what I think will be a 9-book series, and I thought it was so cute. It's a middle grade fantasy about a girl named Sophie who's grown up with humans and been able to hear their thoughts since she was a little girl, and then she finds out that she's not actually a human at all, she's an elf, and then there's this whole world she didn't know about. But yeah, like I said, this is the first book, so it's just a lot of like explaining and character introductions and world building, and I think that Shannon Messenger did such a great job of having kind of an epic fantasy world that is extremely easy to understand for my 10-year-old, but also for me who is used to like really complex worlds and magic systems. I was still entertained and interested. But yeah, Jocelyn's on like the 6th or 7th book probably by now. She has read over 3,000 pages since this like our like self-isolation forced like our own like quarantine, I guess, has started. She is loving these books. In fact, she made all A's on her report card, so I just went ahead and bought her the entire series because we only had the first book. So but yeah, I gave this 4 stars. I think it's great, and I'm absolutely excited to continue on with the book. I don't really want to talk a lot about the book because I promised Jocelyn that she and I could do like an actual review video of it together, so you can get my perspective, like an adult, and you can also get, you know, the middle grade audience's perspective. So we're going to film that probably next week, and I'm excited to talk about that with her. This is the last book that I actually finished, but I did pick up the next book in the series, which is Keeper of the Lost Cities Exile. This is book number 2 in this series. I don't even think I read page 1 yet because of this big old honking book right here, and that is Crescent City House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is an 800-page book, and it is something. So what I have seen of this book, people are like, just make it through the first 100 pages and you'll be good. So that's why I'm kind of in a slump, because I am in the first 100 pages and it's just so info dumpy. There's just so much. You're just thrown into it with all these names, and I don't know, it's a lot. So I just want to get through that, and then hopefully I can finish this book. Luckily, I didn't have to return it today when it was due back to the library because our libraries are closed and they told us to hold on to our checkouts and that we would not be fined. So there's one positive, I guess, of my library being closed. That's probably the only positive. But yeah, so those are all the books that I actually read in February and March, and then these are what I'm currently reading right now, and then also my owls, which I consider in another video. I'm not going to do the TBR jar this month just because of owls. I have so many books already, but yeah. let me know if you've read any of those, if you like them, if you didn't like them, and what you're reading this month. And if you have a video where you wrapped up last month, I'd love to watch it. So yeah, please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more and be my friend, you can subscribe, and also all my social media links are down below. I don't know how different this looks. My camera died in the middle of my outro. Gotta love it. But yeah, I was just saying my social media links are down below, and if you add me, I would love to connect with you. I just realized that I have some extra info to add. If you guys have Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch, I'm going to put my Switch friend code in the description, and you should add me and we can visit each other's islands. I would absolutely love that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon in the next video. Bye!